So before doing the span tag and the div tag, it would be useful to mention that both tags fall under larger categorical descriptions for tags, that being inline tags and block level tags. So let's take a look at this visually so we'll understand a bit more as to what are block level and what are inline level elements. So we're looking at our code here, and we see that we have a sentence: the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, and we are going to show that we use the span tag within this sentence here, and we are going to look at the inline effects of this span tag. So let's look at the actual inline effects. So this is it here: the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. So we see here quick being marked up, brown being marked up, and lazy dog being marked up. And every single one of these markup effects is being demonstrated on a single line. We also marked up a second sentence and we gave it a blue border, and this as well was marked up on the same line here. And this is what is meant by an inline element. So as long as there's room on a line, an inline markup element would just execute its markup and stop on the same line. So on this one line we see 1, 2, 3, 4 markup effects, and this is possible because the span tag is an inline type element. So let's take a look at the, before moving on to the div tag. So the span tag as an inline type element is basically used to mark up anything, any section of text, any small section of a document. We can use the span tag to do this. So with our sentence, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, we applied 3 markup effects within that one sentence, and this is actually one of the main uses of the span tag. It simply allows us to define a range of data or information or part of a document that we want to mark up with something, and keep in mind that it's an inline type element, meaning that you don't want to try attempting using the span element to mark up things across block level elements. So we are going to look at block level elements soon. You can use the span tag within block level elements. You could use it on a single line, but you don't want to use it arbitrarily. For example, let's go back into the code here and let's go to the actual top of our document, which would be the body tag. So after our body tag here, if we were to include a span tag, and we have the closing tag automatically put in place, let's cut it and place it at the end of our document like that. This would be an illegal use of a span tag because it is spanning the entire document, right? So within that span tag there would be other block level type elements as well, and that is logically illegal. Before moving on to block level elements, we are going to demonstrate the difference between block level and inline elements using the actual same sentence. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, and one has been marked up using the span element and the other using the div element. And we have applied the same style or green border to both, and this will enable us to visually see now what happens with markup for inline elements and markup for block level elements. So we are able to see here for the span level element, the green border stops immediately after dog, and for the block level element, the border goes right down to the actual end of the visible screen. So this demonstrates inline as opposed to block level. So for block level elements, the block level markup at a minimum would always take up at least a single full line. It may also take up as many lines as required, but at a minimum, at least a full line. And they are usually preceded by an implicit line break, meaning that you don't have to actually insert the line break. It's implicit, and they are preceded as well by an implicit line break. So what this means is that if we return to our code, we would see that after the span markup, there's no line break. So I didn't put BR, yet you all saw in the visual on the web page that the lines were separated. So if we did a second span, that would demonstrate for you all exactly what I'm speaking about here. So let's do a second span item, and I'll drop it a line and we'll just paste it there. So now we have two span descriptions, and let's take a look at what happens here. So we see here the second span simply begins as close as it could on the same line next to the initial one. So this confirms again that span is an inline type element. So we have two inline elements here, and we are seeing that inline elements simply function on a line, and as long as there's room on a line, as many inline elements as possible will attempt to execute or to render their markup effect on the same line. For block level elements, they would begin implicitly with a line break. They would attempt to take the entire line, not attempt, they will take the entire line, and they would end with an implicit line break as well. We could move on to the div tag here, and we showed that it's a block level type element, and because it's a block level type element, it's usually used for defining or declaring structure in web pages or web applications, the visual component for a web application. So in terms of defining the layouts, for example, of a web page, or the layout for the visual aspect of a web application, you're going to be seeing a lot of div tags. So let's take a look at a sample website that I am currently doing. So this here is the actual web page on the development server, and let's take a look at the source code for it. So scrolling through this code, notice we are seeing we have here body, and immediately after body we see a div tag, and then more div tags. We see a span tag here, so this is some sort of inline markup effect here. We see the end tags, more divs, and we keep seeing a lot of divs. And this is what the div tag is utilized for primarily, for defining structure in a website or the visual user interface for a web application. So Returning now to our code, we have used a div tag here to define two divs. Welcome to our first div. Welcome to our second div. And let's take a look at what we see visually. So we see here, welcome to our first div, welcome to our second div. One is bordered in black, one is bordered in red. Notice they expand as far as they can. So div 1 takes up the entire first line and div 2 takes up the entire second line. So that's it today for the introduction to a few extra HTML elements or tags. Again, do not limit yourself to these, but you can start with this small subset to begin expressing yourselves by building simple basic websites. So in our next course, we're going to look at HTML attributes. So thank you for being here today and take care. God bless.